A mother's horrific revelation that is above Reddit's pay grade. Curiosity killing the cat, then bringing it back to life to kill it again. A man who probably still thinks no one can make money off YouTube. A man's Tinder experience that makes you never want to use Tinder again. And some typical wedding ridiculousness. Hello, my snacks. Welcome back. My name's Jack. Quite a few stories to read today, so let's get through them. Recently found out who my daughter's father is, and I don't know how to feel. I've known my husband, 27 male, since I was 8 when he moved in across the street. He was like an older brother to my twin brother and me because we had no other siblings. My dad was gone a lot because he was a lineman. The only person I really had was my mom. I was kind of rebellious as a teen and I'd sneak out all the time. At the time, I had never had a boyfriend because everybody was afraid of my brother. When I was 15, I snuck out and went to a party. I don't remember what happened that night, but I woke up in the back seat of my car, covered in a blanket and my jacket over my head. I was hurting and confused, but I continued with life regularly. A few months after I went to the school nurse because I wasn't feeling well, and she gave me a pregnancy test, and I told her it was impossible because I didn't even have a boyfriend, but the test was positive, and I cried because I didn't remember ever doing anything like that. They called my mom and the nurse told me to tell my mom because she felt like she shouldn't be the one to tell her. I told my mom I was pregnant, but I've never done anything to have a baby. My mom took me to a doctor, and they told her I was too far along to abort. They told me how far I was along, and I told my mom about how I woke up in the back seat of my car that day. I had my daughter a few months later, and she looked exactly like me. My green-blue eye color, my blonde curly hair, and she even had my full lips. My now husband started to come over more after my daughter was born, and he was so good with her. I started to see him as more than a friend. He bought her clothes, shoes, and toys, and he made sure she had everything she needed, even though he was a college student. So in case it's not clear here, the husband used to be that friend next door. Finds out that his neighbor is pregnant with a child and has no one to really help her raise it, so he decides to take up the mantle, and she ends up falling for him. So when my daughter was around 3, we started to date. We dated for like 6 months before he asked me to marry him at his graduation party. We got married 4 months after that, and I got pregnant with our first son soon after. Everything was so perfect. But as my daughter grew, I noticed how much she started looking like my husband. He always says she's his daughter, not stepdaughter, and he'd get mad if somebody tried to correct him. I thought it was sweet that he was protecting her from not knowing who her father was, but I recently did a DNA test to see if my gut was right. It turns out my husband is my daughter's father. I don't know what to do. I don't even know how or what happened. If I ask him if he remembers, how will he react? He has always been so loving and caring. He told me I was his dream girl and he'd give me the entire world if he could. It's been a week since I got the result and I haven't said anything. My life is so perfect that I don't even want to ask about it. In an edit, I told him the father didn't want to be in her life and he left it at that. My mom told me to tell people that so it doesn't seem like I was sleeping around. We didn't sleep together while we were dating. His family is really religious, so he told me he saved himself for marriage and he didn't believe in giving his body to someone he didn't love. Oh man, yeah, it's really painting a picture now, isn't it? His mum was against us getting married because I had a child, but she eventually came around. That time I woke up in my back seat wasn't the first time, but I stopped going to parties after that time I woke up sore. I called him a minute ago and asked him why does he insist on telling people he's my daughter's father, and he told me he's been there since she was a baby. Even if her father decided to come back in her life, she will still be his daughter. He's already off work and headed home. Second edit, my husband just turned 27 last month, so he's 2.5 years older than me, so he was like 17 when this happened in the fall. I have to agree with the top comment that says, "This is above Reddit's pay grade. You need therapy." Individual, so start with it so you can deal with this. Whether you want to face this or not, this was a big abuse of trust on your husband's part. It is also a bomb waiting to explode that you will have to deal with at some point. These are the sort of secrets that destroy lives. Then, if and when you are ready, do couples therapy and then family therapy. Sooner or later, your your daughter is going to ask about what you know about her father. I assume that people know that you and your husband started getting involved after she was born, and you can't assume no one is going to tell her about that, not to mention pictures. What will happen if she decides to do a DNA test as an adult? Honestly, it's nice to see that people on the internet are humble enough to understand that they are not gonna have all the answers to this. I mean, aside from the blunt obvious that, yeah, he's an abusive a-hole that doesn't deserve to have you in his life. I mean, this wasn't some petty action he was always doing as a kid that made him a bit of a scummy guy growing up, but he's an adult now and he's matured, so he's good. This is someone who literally shattered your potential future because he just wanted you. Oh, but he was in love with you, so he's allowed to have you however he wants. Isn't it funny when we're always told women are the emotional ones, yet again and again we come across these stories where a man cannot control his feelings to the point where it affects everyone else around them. Let's get out of this depression pit for a second though and move on to something a bit more funny. Today I screwed up. I found my in-laws on an adult entertainment site. I want to preface this by saying I don't think any less of my in-laws, nor do I judge the lifestyle they chose for themselves. I see them as my own parents. Oh god. And that's probably why this is hitting me this hard. FYI, I will be changing small details to maintain the privacy of everyone involved in this story. This past week has been rough to say the least. When they said curiosity killed the cat, they weren't lying. A friend of mine told me about a mutual friend who started posting adult content on an adult site. I did not believe them, decided to look it up myself. Oh, was I not prepared for what I was going to see. I found the account and all was well. As I was leaving the site, a video caught my attention. Now on this site, you have to pay to watch a video, but each video has a preview image of what is in the video. And as the title mentioned, it was my in-laws on the image, and they were not alone. This account belonged to someone else, and they were merely guests. Immediately, I freaked out a bit and told my spouse, which I admit was not the right response. No one wants to know this about their parents. My spouse was understandably disturbed by the news. And for those who are wondering, we did not watch the video. As upsetting as this was, we moved on. Well, my spouse did. Unfortunately for me, my curiosity hasn't been satisfied yet. I went to the unholy site that is Twitter to look up this account holder, and this is where I ducked up. I found multiple short videos and images of this person with my in-laws. They were swingers. At first I was unsure because their faces were hidden and the caption only said, "My favorite swinger couple." But then I saw it. The couch, the living room, the blanket. That was, without a doubt, my in-laws' house. I have not told my spouse about this and I don't think I want to, but this has been eating me up and I just need to tell someone. So, Reddit, you are the unfortunate one to listen to my rant. I don't know how to process everything. We're visiting this weekend and I don't know how I will be able to act normal knowing all of this personal information. I should have left it alone, but it made it worse for myself. Help. People's thoughts? You have now watched a reenactment of your spouse's origin story. Look, clearly this is a case of trying to stare down the wolf, so you've got to do that. Make them more afraid of you. Bang your spouse in front of them. Over to Am I the A-hole, where a man is surprised his girlfriend's dating him, and after reading the story, we kind of understand why as well. Am I the a-hole for making fun of my girlfriend for writing fan fiction and claiming it's actual writing? My girlfriend, Abby, 31 female, and I, a 33 male, have been together for a few months, and this Easter, I was going to introduce her to my family. We haven't moved in together yet. Abby is quite smart. She has a PhD and works in her field. I only have a B, so you can imagine my surprise when a hot and smart woman wanted to date me. Anyway, I digress. Abby's passion is writing. Although she's never allowed me to read anything she wrote, she dreams of writing a book and says she's practicing and trying to draft things. One day, I was staying over and fell asleep, and when she went to her office to write. When I woke up, I peered over her shoulder when she was writing and saw names that sounded familiar. I asked her about this, and sure enough, she admitted to writing fan fiction. Apparently, she already wrote 100k fan fiction and is working on her third one. She says it's writing practice and she loves it. I told her it's cringy and if she was serious about her book, she'd write it by now because she's pretty much already wrote 2 books, if only they weren't fan fiction. She got silent and told me to leave her alone. Wow, man, she finally feels comfortable to let you in on her world and you just trash it. Good on you. When I introduced her to my family, I mentioned that she has a PhD. My brother and sister got impressed and asked about it. Abby tried to tell them, but I interjected and told them to not be so impressed because she wastes her time writing silly fanfiction, so I don't know how she even got her doctorate. Now, it was meant to be a joke, but Abby was angry. She called me an a-hole, that she wouldn't talk to me for the rest of the day, and asked me to drive her home. I tried to come in, but she told me she wanted to be alone and write her fanfiction. I told her she was childish, but left anyway. I haven't heard back from her since then, and I told my sister, and my sister agreed with Abby. I tried to call Abby, but she texted me with a-hole and nothing else. My sister thinks I owe Abby an apology, but I don't think I did anything wrong, and yet Abby is annoyed. Was I really the a-hole here? I wonder what the opinion on this is going to be. On the internet, where everyone loves to share fanfiction. You're the a-hole. Look, we all know 99.99% of fanfiction is utter wank. Downvote them! No, wait, do it again! Mate, you are the a-hole. You can imagine your surprise when a hot and smart woman wanted to date you? Yeah, we're surprised too. But thankfully, she's seen the light and broken up with you. Yeah, thinking you're still dating somebody who has clearly broken up with you is certainly more cringe than writing fanfiction. Yeah, and I'm not surprised this also popped up in a comment. Fanfiction is writing, ever heard of 50 Shades of Grey? That was Twilight fanfiction. There are a lot of amazing stories out there. I mean, okay, look, 50 Shades of Grey is arguably not amazing, but you know what I mean. Point is, people have found success writing from fanfiction as a starting point. Apparently, according to this comment too, one of the biggest fanfiction archives on the net, AO3, was in part founded by a published author. Plenty of published authors these days admit to doing fanfic as well. In comparison, I feel like this guy is as outdated in his logic as a parent saying that being a YouTuber is a pointless endeavor in terms of an income. Like, yeah, for some people it's just a fun little hobby to do every now and again, but for others, well, others are like Markiplier. So, either way, I don't think we need anyone else's opinions on this. It's pretty clear this guy's a lost cause. Over to Today I Screwed Up with the worst Tinder experience to ever have. Today I screwed up hooking up with a woman whose roommate hated me. Last night I showed up at a woman's flat to hook up. I'm gonna call her Penelope because she looked like a Penelope, and I want to avoid referring to her as woman for the rest of the story. Penelope and I matched on Tinder a few days ago. Our online communication revealed that both of us experienced an unpleasant breakup recently. So we made a pact to forget about our exes and just enjoy each other with no strings attached. So there I was, knocking on the door of Penelope's flat when a man who kind of looked like Josh Brolin answered the door. He introduced himself as Penelope's husband before asking me how old I was. I said 23. He shook his head and said, even younger than the previous guy. Penelope appeared moments later and practically pushed the husband out of the way. She apologized on the husband's behalf and said he was her soon-to-be ex-husband, who was now nothing more than annoying roommate until she's financially secure enough to move out. So obviously, at this point, you should leave, right? You should just go. This is too much. Well, Penelope grabbed my arm and whisked me away to the bedroom. I asked if it was appropriate to sleep together with her ex in the flat. She said her ex was not gonna be a problem. She was wrong. He was a big problem for my peace of mind, and not to mention my erection. I struggled to get it up when Penelope was going down on me because I could hear her ex yelling in the background. I think he was playing online games and communicating with other players, but all I heard was F-bombs and death threats. I couldn't help but feel like he was low-key trying to intimidate me. I decided to go down on Penelope to see if burying my face between her legs would distract me from her disruptive ex. It was working. I actually managed to get hard in the process. However, as we prepared for penetration, the ex knocked on the door and informed people that her dad was there. Penelope got out of bed and got dressed. I followed her lead and asked if I should leave. She advised me not to leave the room until she returned. An argument erupted between Penelope and her ex as soon as she was on the other side of the door. Based on what I heard, Penelope had no idea her ex made plans to spend time with her dad. The dad assured Penelope that he only agreed to have one beer with his son-in-law, so the son-in-law apologized to the dad for the tension in the atmosphere and asked Penelope if she was going to introduce her father to the young man in her bed. At that moment, I stopped eavesdropping and backed away from the door like the stampede in Jumanji was approaching. Penelope opened the door a few minutes later and explained the situation. She said her ex used her dad to sabotage their time with me and create an awkward environment. I assumed Penelope was gonna ask me to leave, but she did the opposite. She invited me to have a beer with her ex and her dad. She said the two of us had nothing to be ashamed of, so why not? Not gonna lie, I would have preferred going home. But I got the feeling that the beer thing was some kind of reverse psychology power move for Penelope and I didn't want to abandon her, especially if she was willing to sleep with me. I finished my beer as fast as possible and called it a night. Based on the intense eye contact and uncomfortable silences, it was clear that the ex-husband and the dad wanted me gone. Penelope unexpectedly kissed me and squeezed my butt after her ex and her dad refused to respond to me when I said goodbye to them. I appreciate what she did now that I'm somewhere safe, but I was terrified of physically getting thrown out of the flat when that happened. I think I'm done hooking up with random people on the internet for the time being. As a lot of the comments point out, the fact that you opened the door and are answered by her husband, and at that very doorstep are explained the whole situation you're about to enter, that is the point where you should have left. Like, goddamn, man, it doesn't matter how horny you are, you leave. Hell, this story does nothing less than highlight just how willing a man is to go through some form of social torture just to get their willy touched. Like, goddamn, us men, we are desperate creatures, aren't we? Over to a potential butthole. Am I the a-hole for not designing my cousin's wedding dress even though I've designed everyone else's? So I'm a 29-year-old female, and I've designed all the wedding dresses for my cousins, siblings, and aunts for the past decade. When my eldest sister got engaged at 24, she asked me to design her dress since I'm passionate about design, and she always loved my style. Her dress was a knockout. Everyone loved it, and ever since then, whenever one of our relatives announces their engagement, they ask if I can design their dresses for them. I've always said yes, because I absolutely love doing it. It's just so much fun. On to the issue. My cousin, 23 female, is getting married next February and called me up to see when we could meet so that she could share her ideas for her dress and I can start designing it. I do not like this cousin at all. Her parents spoiled her beyond rotten. But I decided to still meet with her, though, and see if anything has changed since she's now an adult. Well, she immediately shows me some photos of wedding dresses by Sarah Burton and tells me she wants something exactly like the pictures. Well, I tried to suggest a change in neckline or color, and she shuts it down and tells me she wants exactly that. But I told her I would not be making her dress, as I love designing clothes that embody their wearer and suit them, not rip off designers so that she can look fancy in a knockoff. So out of curiosity, I decided to Google Sarah Burton wedding dresses, and oh, this cousin just casually wants the wedding dress that has designed itself for a royal wedding. Goddamn, this cousin is certainly aspirational with their expectations. Some of my family, and especially her and her parents, are beyond upset and have been blowing up my phone because I've broken tradition and my baby cousin's heart is because she's been looking forward to having me make her wedding dress for years now. I feel kind of bad, but at the same time, she's taking the fun and bonding out of the designing of a wedding dress. So thoughts are mixed here. On one hand, yes, you as a designer are allowed to absolutely refuse a job, you have that right to do so, but on the other hand, where's the motivation to refuse coming from? Is she genuinely being impossible to work with, or are you just being influenced too much by your bias and despite for her because, what, she had a lifestyle growing up that was far less of a struggle compared to yours? I don't know, I feel like the affluent argument here is a bit of a rickety bridge. As some comments say, you aren't obligated to make anyone's dress you don't want to. However, your reasons are sus. You don't want her to do her dress, and that's fine, but you seem to feel like because you are making the dress, you have the right to force her to choose your vision of the dress. Overall, they then theorized that she just wanted an excuse to shut her cousin down, which in a way would make her absolutely the a-hole. But of course, others argue that you could actually get sued for copyright trying to design something that someone else has already designed, like making a knockoff exactly. Though again, in other comments, this is debatable considering you're just making something for free for someone, you're not trying to distribute and sell it off as your own idea. The majority, however, are definitely saying Natar, purely motivated by the fact that people seem to be at this point expecting you to make things for them just because you've done it in the past. If your cousin wants a specific dress, she should just buy the specific dress. The tradition was for you to design the dresses and sharing these moments of creation with your family members. Of course her and her parents are upset. The sort of dress she wants costs a lot of money. Having you do it is much cheaper. I think it's time you broke the tradition, not the a-hole. So yes, I can agree that this has seemed to have come across that the cousin has expected that she can get a dress from you rather rather than being like everyone else and asking if it's okay. But to counter that thought for you to ponder in, but understand her perspective of the last decade. She's grown up around family that have all been getting wedding dresses done for them. They all look amazing. Again, growing up with a clearly affluent experience. No doubt her parents festered in her mind that she'd get the same experience too regardless because she's family. So she spends the next decade preparing for the idea of her own wedding dress. She finds something she really likes. Oh, it just happens to be the exact same style as to something else there. Well, that's great. That makes it easy for the OP to make the dress then because it's all there already, easy to see what it's going to look like. And then, bam, rejected, kicked out, her dream dress shattered in front of her. I don't know. Personally, I kind of want to say no a-holes here just because while you are not an a-hole to refuse to do a free job, I don't think she's an a-hole for just wanting to get a dress that she already knows she likes. But either way, let me know what you think down below as well. In the meantime, let's go to another potential a-hole with a story that blew up over the last week with a update for us all. Am I the a-hole for insisting my son be invited to my daughter's wedding? I am a 56-year-old female in a bit of a dilemma. My daughter, 26 female, is getting married this summer, and my son, 28, was not invited. They have never really got along, and recently they had a big disagreement. My daughter had an engagement party, and my son got a bit drunk and got handsy with some of my daughter's friends, which they didn't like, and my daughter was furious at him for touching her friends. She kicked him out, and I only found this out after the party was over. Flash forward to now. My son got a message from my daughter uninviting him to her wedding because of his behavior toward her friends. He was so upset and called me to tell me that she had said, and to be honest, I think it's a shame that she feels so angry about it, but I rang my daughter up and I told her I will not be attending the wedding if my son can't come. I felt as though what he did wasn't worthy of ruining family relationships, as him not being invited to her wedding is a huge deal. He's always been a bit temperamental and he gets carried away with things, but he means well. Well, my daughters called me and shouted at me saying that I was enabling his horrible behavior, and even my fiance's mother called me, expressing her frustration with my decision. But I really don't think I'm in the wrong here. If the friends don't feel comfortable, shouldn't they be uninvited instead of her own brother? So am I the a-hole for insisting my son be invited to my daughter's wedding? Obvious thoughts. You're the a-hole. Where is your children's dad in all this? Oh, my husband died 3 years ago. Ah, so you'd rather pretend your son isn't a sexual predator rather than risking losing another family member. Well, you'll lose him all the same when he goes to jail for forcing himself on a woman. Ooh, let me correct that comment for you. Risk losing another male family member? OP doesn't seem all that bothered about losing her daughter, so obviously no one is giving this mother an excuse to get away with what she is enabling from her own son. His behavior is unacceptable, and I understand why your daughter doesn't want him at her wedding. Stop enabling him. Oh, don't you know? He was trying to be friendly and get to know them. He saw the neighborhood cats sniffing each other's butts. No one ever told him you can't do that in polite society. It's everyone else's fault. I mean, it's certainly apparent this woman's internal misogyny towards her own son's actions, considering she describes what is literally sexual assault and harassment as just being handsy. And when the compilation posts, someone snapped the OP saying in the comments that she doesn't think it's actually the friend's problem to deal with. She does feel sympathetic towards them, but she just believes her daughter will regret not having her own brother at her wedding. To which someone offers some genuinely sound advice that actually seems to get through to her. OP, my aunt is in her 70s now. I was having a convo with her about family relationships. She insisted I reach out to a specific cousin and connect like you two used to. I told her thanks, but no thanks. I tried to deflect, but she pushed. So I told her he touched me inappropriately when we were small, so I'm not comfortable with him around me or my kid. She asked why. I explained. Told her what happened. She said, no big deal. So then I asked her, you have a 16-year-old granddaughter. How would you feel if your brother touched her like that? She gasped and said, I'd beat him up and throw him in jail. Okay, auntie, so how come I have to get over it, but you'd never let it happen to your granddaughter? She then remembered her own grandfather. As a child, he apparently would take the kids, set them on his lap, and you all can guess from there. Auntie said she never saw grandpa after a while and never knew why. I helped her connect the dots. They kept him away from children because they knew he was dangerous, but they never told the kids or anyone what he did, cause reputation in town. So auntie and all her siblings had that happen and never got taught it was wrong. They had their trauma brushed under the rug, and it took her 60+ years to finally figure it out. They further explain how this completely relates to the OP here because she's doing the exact same thing and not realizing it. which inspires OP to make an update. Wow, hi. I don't think I've ever been slated more in my life, but I see why. Some comments really put things into perspective for me. Thank you to the ones who were gentle with me. Genuinely appreciate it. But anyway, a little explanation, I suppose. Where I'm from, we don't have an active feminist community at all. I won't get into large details of my own life, as it doesn't justify what went down, but essentially, I suppose now I have realized that I was groped by my grandfather for a majority of my childhood, and I was always dismissive of that behavior, and I suppose that is why I was so lenient with my son's behavior. It pains me to see so many people saying the things that have been playing in my mind for years. I had hoped I hadn't completely failed as a parent, but I guess I have. I think I'm going to contact the girls and apologize for my son's behavior, and apologize to my daughter. I mostly feel guilty for making this process stressful for her. We've always had a great relationship, and I hope this doesn't break it. I think I will be getting my son into counseling and me into therapy, as we evidently have serious character flaws. I am not a bad person, and I'm sorry if you believe that I am. Thank you for your attention. Many are comforted to see that she's seen the light in the comments, and is great proof that trauma can be generational, and sometimes something needs outside interference to be fixed. It's a wonderful example as to why Reddit is totally more effective than any other sort of psychological evaluation out there. Just, forget them. Go on Reddit instead. That'll solve all your family issues. You can trust me, I'm a voice on the internet. Well, friends, that'll end today's video. Thank you always for watching. Love your faces. Drink some water, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.